bist du schön, bei mir hast du rein, bei mir bist du teurer Fingel, bei mir bist du dick, am Säunes hast du nicht, bei mir bist du teurer Fingel.
My name is Sidney Schindler. I was born September 15th, 1925. I was born in Harlem on 135th Street, and I was born in a house because my sister was a year and a half old. My mother had no one to leave her with, so she gave birth to me in the house. And I moved from there. We moved to 139th Street in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of our relatives all in one building.
This is like a six-story apartment house? Or?
It's a six-story apartment house.
They had an elevator?
No elevators.
No walk-up, wow.
There were walk-ups, and we had a lot of aunts and uncles in the building, so we ran from one apartment to another to visit each other. And when I was about 10 years old, we moved to the Upper Bronx, 181st Street, near Bronx Park.
Were your parents born here?
My parents were born in Poland, and they came to this country somewhere about 1918, 1919. My father was a boss painter, and
Your father was a what?
a boss painter. In other words, he painted apartments, but he was the boss, and he had men working for him.
So he owned this painting business?
Well, it was a little business, right? Anyway, unfortunately, I lost my father when I was 13,
wow.
And he was 48.
How did he die?
He died from stomach cancer.
Wow.
And it was during the Depression. It was 1938, and it was 2 weeks before my bar mitzvah. So at that time, fortunately, he had bought 2 buildings in the Bronx that we owned, and each building cost him $250. And it had 5 stories with 10 apartments in each building. There was no heat in the building. They all had their own stoves. And they were paying $20 a month. But we had a little income because it was Depression, and we were too young to go to work. So fortunately, the reason he was able to buy these buildings is that they were 5 years arrears in taxes. So the city could take them over at any moment. But they didn't take them over for about another 5 years. So that's how we got through to the first few years of when he passed on. I went to Roosevelt High School up on Fordham Road in the Bronx, next to Fordham University. And after I was there a couple of years, after I was able to get my working papers, I went out and got a job at the ballparks. Harry M. Stevens was the guy that we worked for, and on a doubleheader they could use all the kids that showed up because there was a lot of activity. They had 60,000 people at the stadium.
This is Yankee Stadium?
Well, my first job was at the Polo Grounds, which was near the Yankee Stadium.
Right.
But he had the concession in most of the ballparks. I also worked at the racetracks because that's where you had concessions also. At the ballparks, they paid us 10% commission. When you got there, they issued you one item, whether it was Coca-Cola, you know, soft drinks or ice cream or peanuts or
Hot dogs?
hot dogs. I even sold coffee. They had these large bins of coffee. And they paid us 10% commission.
How much was a hot dog?
Hot dog at that time,
Nickel or 10 cents?
no, at the stadium it was a quarter, I think.
Wow.
I think a Coke was about a quarter. They always got better prices because it was they had a captive audience.
So what year did you start working in the stadiums?
I started working in about 1941.
And how old were you in 41?
I was 16. And I worked, you know, for 2 years, mostly summers, because I was going to school. I'd work weekends only. And I then got a job for a furrier as a shipping clerk, and I worked there for a couple of years. And then I went into the service. I wasn't in the service that long. I was in the Navy, and
the war ended.
The war ended, so I got discharged, and first thing I did was come back to the fur house. I worked there, and my sister was getting engaged, and her future brother-in-law offered me a job as a salesman. I never sold, I mean, I sold hot dogs, but that was about it. So I joined him, and I worked there for 45 years.
45 years?
Right. Selling and styling costume jewelry. And through the years, we had a lot of good lines. I was selling to wholesalers, so we were getting people from all over the world, as well as all over the states, all the different states. Of course, I got married when I was about 28. My wife lived in the 5 towns, and I lived in the Bronx, so it was quite a...
Wow, that's a cultural shock.
Right.
Where did she live in the 5 towns?
She lived in Hewlett, and we were married in Woodmere.
The Woodmere Temple?
The Woodmere. She was 20, 21, 20. And we got married, and we had 2 lovely children, and then we moved to Oceanside. At first we lived in Rockville Center for 3 years, then we bought a house in Oceanside, and we lived there for about 32 years. The kids grew up. I played cards on the train, the same Pinochle game, going from Oceanside to Penn Station, and then back to Oceanside in the evening.
Is that where you became a card shark?
Well, that's where I
honed your skills?
Honed my skills. And the night of the blackout, we were sitting on the I think it was the 5:30 train, and at 5:18, everything stopped. If you remember, all I remember is that we played until 3 o'clock in the morning on the train. We had a battery light in the corner, and everybody ran out to get a bite because the doors were open on the train, but nobody could go anywhere. And we sat all night, and then the next morning, the train went back to Oceanside. Well, I did also learn. My father played when I must have been about 10 years old or 8 years old. And the men would play Pinochle in my house. And that's where I really learned the game, but I didn't play it because I watched, you know. And then many years later, we played, we played Pinochle. But when I came out to the island, they played this partners, forehand like they play here. And we had some very good games on the train.
Now with four-handed Pinochle, everybody gets how many cards?
Each one gets 12 cards.
And what does the bidding start at?
The bidding starts depending on the game. My game here starts at 150, but my game during the week when I play with some other men, they play for money, that game starts at 200. The aim of the game is there are 8 aces and then there's trump. So you can gauge by how many aces you and your partner have, how many tricks you can make. Our game, you open for 150. And if your partner can take you out, then he says 160. That means he'll take the bid at 160 because you may have a very weak hand and you can't make it. If he has a lot of meld, he'll say 170. So when the bidding gets back to you, you could either, say 180 or you could let him have it. But
and 200 means?
200 means aces, 210 means clubs, 220 diamonds, 230 hearts, 240 spades, flush is 150, aces is 100. A roundhouse, which is a marriage in each color, which is a rarity, but it happens once in a while, is 240 points. A 9 of trump is 10 points in a meld. I have 2 children. One lives in Chicago. Her name is Bonnie, and she's married to George, and they have 3 daughters. And 2 of them are living in Manhattan after graduating from college, and 1 is graduating this coming year. And Bonnie and George are living in, they're living in Chicago 20 years.
Wow.
They started in Dallas, and then after being there for about 11 years, he wasn't happy where he was working, and they shifted him. A headhunter sent him to Chicago with a very, very good job, and today he's one of the top companies in the field of scrap aluminum. And
your other child?
And my other daughter lives in Norwood, New Jersey. She's married to a sports enthusiast. They have one son, my grandson, who is graduating in a couple of weeks from high school. And he's a pitcher with his high school team. In conclusion, I want to say that living at Boca Lago is a very, very easy life when you're retired. And the people here are very nice, and we have a very good time in the pool and around the grounds. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.